In November 2023, Independence Township took a significant step toward enhancing its recreational offering by acquiring a 39-acre property adjacent to Clintonwood Park. The land was generally sold by long-standing resident family with a vision of recreational use. This property will be merged with the existing 121-acre Clintonwood Park, creating a 160-acre sprawling community space. The township is eager to involve the community in shaping the future of this expanded park. And that's why we've invited you to join us in a meeting. We're going to present some information about the new property and gather valuable feedback. Also, we want to initiate the framework for future park planning. Your insights and ideas are crucial, and we envision the potential of this sensitive land where traditional recreation might not be suitable. To assist the process, the township has engaged Norwalk and Frous Engineering, who's going to continue the rest of the presentation tonight. A trusted consultant help us amend the current Parks and Recreation Plan, the collaboration to enable us to pursue grant funding for the future property. I want to extend, again, our gratitude to the dedicated staff, the committee members, and the township officials whose efforts have made this acquisition and planning process possible. And we look forward to hearing from you, your thoughts and ideas to help us create a plan and move forward for the township. And thank you. I'm going to hand this over to Steve, and I'm going to limp to the back.
Thank you, Adam, and again, welcome everyone. Hopefully, I can talk loud enough. I think the microphone's for the TV. I don't think it projects outward.
I have trouble hearing you.
So I'll try to speak louder. Again, I appreciate the welcome introduction. Again, what we're here today to do is to not tell you what the development at the park is going to be with this new parcel. It's to engage commentary and feedback really from the community. What we're here to present is really fact-finding, investigation of the property itself, some of the natural features that we've found, and then just some general ideas of what passive recreation, or as Adam put it, non-traditional recreation might involve. But really they're just ideas, and we're looking for feedback from you folks tonight to help provide more ideas. So we're going to give a short 10 to 15 minute presentation, and then what we'd like to do is we're going to break off into individual tables manned by myself, Mark, and Ellen from our office, and going to have some blank sheets of paper. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to write down your ideas and thoughts and memorialize those for really the next steps of this process, this master planning process. So we're really at just beyond the starting line for this, and we're excited to be part of it and see where it goes. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Mark and take it from there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Sandberg, landscape architect with Norwalk and Frous. And happy to be here to present this to you. Can everyone hear me okay? If I speak louder, can you hear me okay? All right. Thanks everyone for coming. As was mentioned, the parcel that was purchased just over a year ago is over 39 acres. And the goal of our meeting tonight is to present some features of that new parcel to you, to gather your ideas and feedback, and then also to initiate some framework for planning for what will this parcel be and how will it connect to our parks system in the future. If some of you aren't familiar with Clintonwood Park yet, it's right in the heart of Independence Township. Centrally located to the community, within 2 miles of the village of Clarkston, Pine Knob, the high school, as well as this library that we're meeting at tonight. And the new parcel that was acquired is bordered on 2 sides by Clintonwood Park. Very close proximity to the walking paths that are currently there along the border. On the north side is private residential property. The new property does not directly touch Independence Oaks, but there is a connection from Clintonwood Park to Independence Oaks on the north border of Clintonwood Park. To the west, residential, private residential land, large acre properties. 2 branches of the Clinton River from the northeast and the northwest converge in the center of this new parcel into the main branch of the Clinton River. These are the Clinton River headwaters, and they flow south and then east. If you look here on the west side of Clintonwood Park, the Clinton River currently cuts through the park, but there really isn't much access to it. You'd have to walk through quite a bit of brush, wooded, forested area, and probably very wet soil in order to get there. When we explored the new parcel, most of the soil around the river in the middle of the property was so wet that we really couldn't get to it. So we want to make sure with everything that we're doing here that this endeavor matches what was set out in the master plan that was created for last year and is in effect until 2027. Some goals and objectives from that document that relate to this are up on the screen here. And there were 4 different sections that the goals really fit into, including parks, recreation, and seniors, the main agency here at park development. How do we develop parks, facilities, amenities? How do we improve recreation opportunities and expand maintenance and storage facilities? Can we acquire more parkland? Can we create more safety paths and connect township properties and township utilities together? In terms of recreational land, can we expand the safety path system that already connects many different things in the community? In terms of facilities, can we provide park facilities to meet the community-wide recreation needs of residents like you? And also in terms of administration and the organization, how do we fund doing all of these things? And one way we can do that is to seek donations. We can also seek and apply for state, federal, and local grants. So here are some examples of different funds that Independence Township and neighboring communities have acquired funding for all sorts of different park projects. There's many through the state, including through the DNR, Natural Resources Trust Fund, recreation passports that you pay for with your license. That money is pooled by the state and can be used for park improvements. There's also a lot that relates to habitat and species and protecting wildlife. From our observation of this parcel, there is a lot of potential for habitat preservation and even improvement. There's also federal funding and local funding, including the general fund, millages, green infrastructure grants through SEMCOG. There's bond programs and, of course, private and corporation and business donations that can be sought out or are even just there for the picking. We also want to look at how this plays into Clintonwood Park as a whole. Currently, this is from the master plan, a little brief on what Clintonwood Park has and what it offers. It's a very heavily programmed park, over 120 acres with multiple indoor centers and spaces that can be rented, multiple tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts, playground, splash pad, walking path that is about a mile long, I believe, sand volleyball courts, picnic areas, and a gaga ball pit, including more things. So there's a lot that can be done here without needing much more work, much more programming. So how does this new parcel connect to what's already there? Does it serve to connect everything in more ways than one, or does it stay its own entity within the park? A little history behind the park parcel. This is from 1963. Not a whole lot has changed. We can see as far back as 1940 through the county property gateway aerial images. And on the east and southeast, next to me here, it appears that the areas there were cleared for agricultural use and maybe even piled up with dirt that was cleared for the south and east adjacent land. Clintonwood Park used to be an orchard. There was a barn, and there was also a house at the northwest corner, right off of Perry Lake Road. Sometime during the 70s, it appears that they were razed. Either they just fell out of use or burnt down, who knows? Maybe somebody out here knows. But in 2008, approximately, it appears that the northwest portion was filled and cleared, maybe in preparation for building something, but as we'll talk about in the next few slides, nothing was ever built there. This is a very wet area. Most of it's on a floodplain. 3/4 of this site is floodplain, and the other quarter is upland and raised enough that it could be usable land without much work. This is a recent picture from 2017 when it appears the river was pretty high. So you can see how extensively that river cuts through the property. The center and southwest are very, very wet. Even during the drought in October, when we visited this site, it was too wet to walk through. Here's some existing features on the site. The yellow dashed line represents the existing paths that are currently being maintained by the park staff. The previous owner also maintained these. There's 3 bridges on the site, little orange rectangles outlined in black, 2 on the north over the smaller branches of the river, and then 1 on the south that is dilapidated at the moment. But they are strong enough to hold a golf cart crossing over, but probably not adequate for regular, safe use over the next coming years. There's also remnants of a fire pit toward the northwest, a large cleared area, 2 gates off of Perry Lake Road on the northwest. And here's a wetland map that also shows the floodplains. So here, dark blue, all floodplain. Some of that area is usable land. It probably can be walked on when it's dry enough. But toward the southwest, while those trails are maintained and mowed and cleared enough to walk through, they can be very, very wet at times. We'll look through a few photos so that you can see what really is there. Toward the top here, there's some walking paths that some of you may be familiar with at Clintonwood Park. They go through what looks to be an old tree farm with very large mature hardwood trees. As you go toward Clintonwood Park on the east, there's some very nice trails through an upland field, maple trees, full color in the fall. There seems to be a good connection point right here between the walking paths and this open field, and was probably used at some point by the last owners to connect to his property to Clintonwood Park and Independence Oaks. Here's one of the bridges here over the smallest path of the Clinton River. It's really kind of a creek in that spot. And through here, there's a nice woodland trail with tire tracks. You can see a picture of the stone cabin that still exists on the site. It might be a shed, might be a cabin. It may have been used for actually sleeping in at some point, but right now it's musty, disrepair, and needs some work if it were to be used. You can also see the farmhouse remnants, the gates, the first bridge over the larger part of the Clinton River, and a view down Perry Lake Road on the far left there. Towards the wettest part of the city, or of the parcel, the one standout feature here is that a lot of this corner of the property and even the central areas of the property are host to tamarack pine groves, which is very common throughout the state, but in terms of Oakland County and Metro Detroit, very unique. A lot of us have never seen tamaracks around Metro Detroit. They grow in saturated soil and they lose their needles in the winter. You can see a beaver dam at the bottom left. There were a couple signs on the property saying, enter at your own risk, watch out for varmint traps, not responsible for injury and things like that. And we did hear that the previous owners have hunted beaver on the property, possibly if they were being pests, we don't know at this time. But they also hunted deer on the property. So there are 4 deer blinds currently surrounding the trails. And you can see one at the bottom towards me on the right here. In the southeast corner, it's very close to Clintonwood Park. So you can see the soccer fields on the aerial map. You can see the maintenance facility here. These have a good chance of connecting to this new parcel in some way, but in what way, we'll have to think about. Here's a shot of the soccer fields as you view it from the Clintonwood Park walking trail. And just for some context, you can see the maintenance building and the current concession building that has some maintenance garage storage in the back. The front of that building, I believe, is used for concessions in the summer next to the baseball fields. And on the side, there's restrooms. This is all within 1/8 of a mile of the new parcel, so 5-minute walk from the border, maybe 10, 15 minutes from the center of the park. Looking on the south of this new parcel, there's a walking path that you can faintly see on the map. And then south of that, there's some very well-loved and used features of Clintonwood Park, like the basketball courts, pickleball courts, splash pad. And not too far away from all that is another pavilion, restroom, center, playground, and also the nearest parking lot is toward the west of Clintonwood Park and serves already to provide close access to this new parcel. The new parcel has a lot of very interesting and unique vegetation. Large trees, even young trees that it seems the previous owners had planted, young evergreens on the top right. The pathways are nicely arranged around the property. They don't necessarily go through it, but there is access all the way around the property. And the water features themselves, very interesting to look at what the Clinton River has to offer. It would be interesting to spend more time out here and see what types of animals are using it regularly and the different features as it goes through the seasons. So we thought about a few things, just ideas, nothing set in stone, of course, but what could we do here that is something unique to Clintonwood Park? So we think of the term passive recreation, things that you can do just like walking and cross-country skiing in the winter, hiking, even fishing, something that doesn't take a lot to do, doesn't take a large group to do, or could be done in a large group if needed. Things that also fall into that are picnicking, day camping, disc golfing, and even something like a nature center with boardwalks and informative signs. We are just beginning the planning for this property. And so we're currently on the first engagement meeting with the public, you. And from here, we'll be going through a few phases to see what we can do with this property and set out on the plan. All of this will be collected and then presented back to the public. There will be surveys going out regarding what we hear and what we propose. And then in the summer, we hope to finalize some of this planning for you. At this point, we could open it up.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And just a few things here before we close the presentation. I saw some sign-in sheets going around. Really want to make sure that everybody's got an opportunity to sign that. We want to make sure that we acquire the data and that you were here. I think there's a spot for email, your email address. If you give that to us, our hope and desire is we're going to put that in with other community groups and keep you apprised really of the town, with a joint operation of the township, keep you apprised as how this master planning process moves forward if you choose to, prescribe to that email blast. So you'll kind of be in the know as we go forward. So if you haven't signed the sheet, it's on the back table just next to the door. Make sure you grab that. And then before we break up again, I just wanted to emphasize some of the things that Mark talked about. This property, I think, has a lot of positives to it, but it's got some environmental features that, while a positive, also help direct development in that it restricts what we can do. So when we've got wetlands to deal with, we've got floodplains to deal with, does that mean you can do nothing? No, it doesn't. But what it often requires is that we can't be very ambitious in there with large fields, athletic fields, things of that type. So we don't really see that here going forward, but we see it almost as a very unique opportunity to complement what's already in Clintonwood, which is quite a lot. So we want to get your feedback, but I just wanted to set that tone that while nothing's on paper, there's nothing established for what's going to happen, we are going to be regulated by some of those environmental features as to what we can do here. So just kind of as a backdrop for that information. And then I wanted to open it up now for any general questions that anybody had that we could go over on the presentation. And then when we finish the Q&A, like I said, we're going to split up so that anybody wants to ask us direct questions and really give us your feedback. We're going to do that too if you don't want to ask in public. Yes?
So my husband and I live just down the road from this parcel, and you were talking about the tamaracks being unique. There's a lot of unique wildlife in that area too, and two that are threatened status that we see all the time. Well, I don't see the Michigan rattlesnake, but I know that it's one of the few, parts in Oakland County especially, that has the Michigan rattlesnake, but also the Blanding's turtle, which is a threatened status. So I'm hoping that, you know, some factors like that are taken into account when you're thinking of what to do, because, you know, even if it's disc golf or whatever, that really is going to negatively impact the wildlife, and it's such a really special area.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's one of the environmental regulations that we're gonna have to adhere to. So whatever we do here, if it's improving the trails that exist out there that go through wet areas, we're gonna have to get permitting through the state, and that threatened and endangered species checkbox has to be reviewed by the state, and so, yeah, that'll be something that we'll include.
The trails.
Yes, sir?
The yellow lines designating trails on that parcel, those are walkable?
Um,
In good weather. Most of them have to be damn dry. Cause that is just,
Yeah, I would say they're historical beaten paths. I don't know that I would dedicate them as trails.
was that Jim Krieger or Mosier or?
This is,
Was
it
Mosier?
becomes very wet here,
Oh, yeah,
and here, this section is unwalkable,
yeah.
probably when it's even dry.
Well,
But if you wear boots, you're good.
well, your northwestern corner would be unwalkable, except more semis than you could count on your hands and toes came in there dumping.
Yeah.
Dumping through in there. Otherwise, that would be
Wet, too.
one giant swamp.
Well, that's why they can build there, like it's unbuildable.
Yeah, that's.
And that does go back to our historical map there.
We speculated what you're saying happened when,
There's no speculation.
Yeah, and that goes to this point right here. Something was brought in, the topography was changed, definitely. Yeah, it is walkable in October when we walked the entire site. We walked this path, and we only decided not to walk here. But everything else was traversable and no problem. Wet socks, that's it.
Yeah?
yes, sir.
Yeah, flip side of the question about natural resources is, are there invasive plants in particular that we ought to remove? Because there are a lot of them around in the wooded areas.
I can't say for sure, because our investigation to date was really just getting photos and getting a feel for the property.
I live at Main Timony, I own the Krieger farm, so I'm adjacent. And there's a ton of phragmite, which I'm trying to kill on my side, and there's a lot of loose stripe, or phragmite, however you want to pronounce it. Those are two off the bat.
And if the bittersweet isn't in there, I'll eat a half.
Oh, yeah.
You're,
I'll fight that the rest of my life.
people for years to come getting rid
Yeah.
of the basics.
Yeah, what needs to happen at some point, once there's a rough idea of what wants to happen, is we really need to do a wetland survey out there, a topo survey. That's not been done yet. So in that process, I think we're gonna flush out some of that information. Yes, ma'am?
I'm just wondering if you analyzed that filter that was brought in.
No.
I wrote a letter to the DEQ at the time, I never received an answer, but it was gravel hauler after gravel hauler all summer long, and I just don't know what was in that.
Yeah, and we don't either. Eventually, somewhere down the road, when there's a plan for that area, there'd be soil borings done to understand, is that junk, or is it, soil that can actually be reused?
It was such a pristine parcel, and then all that dirt was brought in, and it's just terrible.
I think, yes, ma'am?
I wondered, as a resident on Perry Lake Road, if you have any thoughts of any sort of negative impacts for us, like that live close by, like, are you planning some sort of entrance, like public entrance over there, or something that, like, it's a tiny, we all live over there because it's quiet, and because of this special, so like, are we gonna start having like traffic come through past, like an entrance at the end, like, is that what we need to campaign, really, I guess, like, keep coming to these to ensure, to preserve our, peaceful, like, chunk of Clarkston?
Yeah, I think that your feedback is good. I don't know whether there's gonna be a drive there. We don't know
Sure.
what's gonna happen yet. There's obviously a drive there to the property now, but I don't currently envision that we're gonna have a huge influx of new cars because I don't see the level of use of the property, meaning that your main activities in Clintonwood proper. What happens up here in the new parcel, if there was a small lot for access to trails or something, I could envision that, but I don't envision 200 cars going there.
I'd say, I would put that under the category of famous last words. Because let me assure you, you don't have to have designated parking spaces along Perry Lake Road. I'm on the far end, and let me assure you, there are people up there all the time. Maybe not in this temperature, but as the good weather comes on, there's a little turnaround up there.
On
It can
Perry.
be blocked by kids, or not kids.
That's for Independence Oaks
So
access.
Independence Oaks.
Yeah, and then right before this section, the road is very, very thin, so if you have people walking, and now it all of a sudden becomes a major entrance for bikes, people walking in, you have cars coming down the road, and it would almost seem like something would need to be done at Perry Lake Road to make it safe for people to walk, and then have the extra cars coming, if you were to have some kind of parking there.
Sure.
I guess you got to squeeze, if you had to, I suppose you could squeeze some parking spaces in there.
Yes, yes.
Does that cabin have any facilities or utilities in there, or is it just the building?
There's a chair and tables and garbage. Right.
There's no water?
The floor is partially wood and rotted right now.
Could be an old sugar shack, who knows, you know?
Any other questions before we kind of split off into groups? Way in the back.
I'm Sue Julian from the Blue Heron Headwaters Conservancy, and I just want to congratulate the township on purchasing a parcel that has such high resource values. And I hope that we'll hear creative comments from people about how that can be used. But some of the things that may have been suggested, I think you'll see some photos here. We're talking about maybe fishing in the river. The problem is it's about 6 inches deep. So it's not going to be a great fishing resource. I think we all need to know more about the property, which is what you're trying to do with these sessions. Thank you for having this.
Appreciate it.
I just wonder who would be responsible for maintaining the property, and it's already fallen in some disrepair. You know, since it's been sold, the gate that is along Prairie Lake Road, I'm a resident on that road, you know, has already fallen into disrepair and hanging and.
Yeah, I would assume that maintenance going forward from that purchase would be the Parks and Rec Department and anything that gets developed there. Yes.
Is there any potential of partnering with Independence Oaks Park or the Clinton Hill Park, abuts to Independence Oaks? Because they're talking about the path that circles back there. There's a gate back there that abuts and it's locked. It's not on this particular piece of parcel, but it's over on the east side. And some of that foot traffic that you're talking about that comes out on that circle, if we partnered with them, it would link that trail for bikers and everything to be able to go right through the park and hook up to this and come on Clarkston Road. Is there any potential for that linkage?
I think that that's on the table. I know that we've talked to the township about opening that communication with Independence Oaks to see what their interest would be, because it seems logical that there be some continuity between the two.
Sure.
I hope that your research will take into account what Independence Oaks offers, because one thing that the gentleman mentioned was the cross-country skiing. And, the gate at the end of our street is locked this time of the year, because that is, the loop through Independence Oaks right there at the end of our street. It is, it's groomed for cross-country skiing already, so it just seems like a shame to duplicate and not take into account what they're offering already.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, we're going to definitely try to, again, open that communication up and make sure that those are flushed out.
It's very hard to hear what they're saying back here when they ask questions and you answer. So I don't really know what the question was or the comment was that you're agreeing to. But this property, you are with NF Engineers, is that correct?
Yeah, we're the township's
You're
consultant.
hired by the township?
Yes.
Is there anyone with the township here from what I saw, January, February, this is an initial meeting to get started, to get some input from the public? I thought the one guy that left was a park official.
He was, yep.
Director. Right, so I guess I'm trying to understand what the connection between you and the township is. Are they asking you to do this? Have you been hired by them to kind of get this, or?
Yeah,
This is my first hearing of it, my first understanding of it, so I'm just trying to understand what the connection is.
so our role here is to coordinate all these meetings, take all the public engagement information and create a master plan for the township. So that's what we've been hired to do.
Okay, so instead of our Parks Recreation Department doing it, they brought in an outside company, you, to to get this together and make some recommendations on how to proceed with it? Is that?
Yeah, we have, knowledge. We've done this in other communities, and, we're bringing that expertise, I guess, to the table to assist the township with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other open questions? Yes, sir.
Do they have any sort of deadline, when they want to have, when they want to actually implement it?
In general, in rough terms, we're going through this engagement process over the winter. We're going to prepare from that all the ideas of what people would like to see, what fits, environmental regulations, et cetera, come up with a master plan by late spring, early summer. And that plan will be presented ultimately to the township's planning commission and township board. And then once those are approved, it becomes part of your Parks and Rec master plan. And as Mark said, that's important because that master plan, park-wide, township-wide, allows the township to go out and apply for grants to fund, whatever wants to get developed here.
So do you foresee execution maybe 2 years down the road?
I couldn't even say exactly. It depends on money, so grants take a long time to develop and acquire, so I'm not envisioning anything this year.
Right now, the property is just sitting there. It has been sitting there for 2 years now?
Since the purchase. I don't think the park's done a lot with it in the last year or so, no.
They have mowed and maintained the trails in that sense.
Most of that land is wetlands. I mean, it is I've been back there many years ago, but most of it is wetlands, correct? I mean, it is a part of the headwaters of the Clinton River, and most of that filters, feeds into that, and keeps it going. So I think you said earlier, it would be very hard to put structures and development in there because of that.
Yeah, so the map that we have on the screen here, this is information directly from the state of Michigan. You could find this online yourself. This is floodplain limits and wetland limits. But what I would preface is this is just a global look. This is not fine-tuned. So these limits are not approved by the state of Michigan yet. I would imagine that they're not going to be as large as what you see right there on that screen, meaning that there might be some more developable property. But you're absolutely right. This property is unique in that it does have a lot of wetlands and natural resources that it's going to limit development on the property. That's why we're trying to look at what passive recreation could we bring here that fits in the character of what the property provides us.
Thank you.
So do you develop similar properties that are just as wet?
Yeah, we've developed properties that are,
If you were to try and, maintain a trail there, then one of the options is like an elevated boardwalk.
could be.
And, is that something that a lot of times interferes with the wildlife?
We've done projects where we've installed boardwalks and we've dealt with the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake. So yeah, there's ways to deal with that. Yep.
That's what I was gonna ask, if we know how much wildlife is in that particular parcel.
We standing here do not. I mean, like I said, we've only spent a couple days out there. This is the ground floor for us.
I'd just be concerned with the disc golf idea, because if frisbee goes off path, it's very difficult to retrieve it, so trying to put a disc golf course might not be an option, just because
Yeah.
it's so much wetland.
Yeah, really what those photos were is just ideas. You know, they have to be vetted, they have to make sense, but what we wanted to make sure everybody understood was that we don't envision just a simple expansion of Clintonwood proper with the same type of amenities that you got out there. The land just won't support that.
Would they consider putting a fence around it, just so we don't have like all the traffic coming down our road, or the people coming down our road, or?
We want that information, we
Okay.
want to note that. We want all those concerns, ideas, feedback. That's really what we're here for,
Okay.
more than anything. I'm afraid there's going to be no more questions if we split up here. Yes, sir.
I just moved to the area. I was just wondering if the property is open for people to walk through it right now.
I think the township's shaking their head, yes, that it's open. It's not sanctioned, it may not be safe. Those bridges, I myself, might not cross them.
It's not an easy walk. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It's not easy. There's a lot of wetlands there where you're multiple weeks up to here.
That bridge, crossing that bridge is really tough.
They just walk the stage.
Okay, well, I appreciate the questions. If some of you choose to leave without talking to us further, just make sure you get that sign-in sheet, and then we're gonna be at some tables here. So if you want to reiterate some of your concerns, we're gonna jot them down on paper so that we memorialize them, and take all that information into account. And thank you.